The Shadows of Ink and Destiny. The rain fell in an unbroken sheet, a silver curtain that shrouded the city in mist, where neon lights flickered like dying stars, and the air smelled of wet pavement and forgotten dreams. Ethan Clarke hunched over his worn notebook, his fingers trembling as he scrawled words onto the last blank page, ink smudging beneath his touch. He had spent years lost in the labyrinth of rejection, each letter from a publisher a dagger buried deep into his resolve. He had heard them all. Not marketable enough. Lacks depth. Try again when you've matured. The words had become ghosts that haunted his sleepless nights, whispering that his dreams were nothing more than smoke. Yet he wrote, every day, every night, through hunger and despair, through the flickering bulbs of rented rooms and the suffocating grip of self-doubt. He wrote because it was the only thing that made sense in a world that seemed determined to crush him. But something was different tonight. As he penned the final line of his latest manuscript, a gust of wind slithered through the cracks of his window, though the night outside was still. The words on the page shimmered, as if alive, and a shadow coiled from the ink like smoke rising from a dying candle. Ethan recoiled, his breath caught in his throat as the silhouette of a figure began to take form, a woman with eyes like fractured moonlight and hair that flowed like spilled ink. She wore a dress of shifting words, sentences drifting across the fabric as if stolen from the pages he had written. "You called me," she said, her voice a melody woven from longing and sorrow. Ethan staggered back, the chair scraping against the wooden floor. "Who? What are you?" She smiled, tilting her head. "I am the soul of your stories, Ethan Clarke. The dreams you bled onto the page, the voices you gave life to. I have waited for you to write the right words, to summon me, and now we begin." He should have screamed, should have run, but something about her presence held him captive. A magnetic pull, an unspoken promise wrapped in the mysteries of ink and fate. Then, as suddenly as she had appeared, the world around him shifted. The walls of his tiny apartment dissolved into darkness, and he found himself standing in a grand ballroom, chandeliers swaying from an unseen wind. Shadows danced along the marble floors, and faceless figures waltzed to the sound of a phantom orchestra. At the center of it all stood a man draped in midnight, his eyes pools of endless night. "Welcome, Ethan Clarke," the man intoned, his voice smooth as silk and sharp as glass. "You have crossed the boundary between fiction and reality. You are no longer merely an observer. Here, you write your own fate." The woman stepped beside Ethan, her fingers cool as they grazed his wrist. "Beware the collector," she whispered. "He gathers lost souls, those who dream but never act, those who create but never believe. He has been waiting for you." Ethan's pulse hammered against his ribs. "Why me?" The collector chuckled, his presence swelling like a storm. "Because you dared to dream beyond your means. You spun stories so vivid they bled into existence. Now, the price must be paid." The ballroom trembled, the figures dissolving into ink and smoke. Ethan felt himself being pulled, his thoughts unraveling like torn pages in a hurricane. The woman gripped his hand, her voice steady.
"Right.
Write your way out." His fingers fumbled for his notebook, the pages blank and waiting. Heart pounding, he scribbled furiously. Ethan Clarke defied the collector, his words becoming a weapon, a shield, a light in the abyss. The ink glowed, and suddenly, the darkness recoiled, shrieking as if burned by the raw force of creation. When the world settled, Ethan found himself back in his apartment, the rain still pattering against the window. The woman was gone, but the notebook lay open before him, filled with words he did not remember writing. The next morning, He sent his manuscript to the last publisher willing to read his work. Weeks passed in agonizing silence until the call came. His novel had been accepted. A bestseller, a phenomenon. Yet, as he stood on stage at his first book signing, pen poised over an eager reader's copy, he glimpsed her in the crowd, the woman of ink and dreams, watching with a knowing smile. And in the shadows beyond her, the collector lingered, patient as ever. For every story written, another bargain must be made.
Whispering echoes.